This is Leeds Trinity University.
Welcome to Yorkshire Voice News at 1:15. I'm Shaneen Bruder.
And I'm Ash Yacoub. Coming up in today's programme, musicians across the UK are criticising venues for taking a cut from merchandise sales. TV presenter and tech whiz Jason Bradbury tells us about his views on technology production and carbon emissions. As some post offices in Bradford are closed today after a national strike was announced over pay disputes, we asked people on the streets of Bradford on what they think about the increasing pay. The Supreme Court in America have voted to overturn the historic ruling that legalized abortion. We speak to the people of Bradford about their views on criminalizing.
Let's start with some news from over the weekend. Police have made an arrest after a man was seriously injured in a knife attack in Bradford. The attack took place inside the Islamic Centre on Newton Street during Eid celebrations yesterday. The victim, who is in his 20s, was taken to hospital for treatment and is currently in a critical condition. It is not being treated as a hate crime or terrorist-related incident at this time. A 25-year-old woman has gone missing in Bradford. Casey Prasad, who is described as a mixed-race female, 5'8", with blonde curly long hair, was last seen on Ive Gate in Bradford city centre at 7:45 p.m. on Monday, wearing a white dress. She also has a tattoo on the right side of her forehead and across her right cheek. Police are concerned for her welfare and request that anyone with information contact West Yorkshire Police.
The Supreme Court in America have voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, the historic ruling that legalized abortion. The leaked report could lead to abortion being made illegal in the US. We spoke to the people of Bradford about their views on criminalizing abortion.
Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. At the end of the day, it's a person's choice what they want to do with their body and their life. And I think in some circumstances, it has to be an option, for rape, people that have been raped or people that have, got children that could be severely disabled. That's a massive impact on someone's life, and to not have that option of being able to, be able to deal with that in their own way, I think it's awful, it's horrible, because at the end of the day, America's a huge influence on not only our country but the rest of the world, and I feel like with it happening in other countries as well, it's definitely something that could be brought over here, scarily.
It's an individual decision, and it's just with, it's human rights, I think, whatever's best for the individual.
We've got a lot more freedom of choice.
We have. It's the freedom in England, what our rights are and what the laws are at the minute, so don't worry me that it's happening in America.
New figures suggest that 1 in 10 think technology production is a significant contributor to carbon emissions, while only 2/3 believe air travel is, despite both having a similar impact. In addition, almost half say that they would sacrifice spending money on new technology as a result of the rising cost of living. We spoke to TV presenter and tech whiz Jason Bradbury about his views on the news figures.
Hello, Ash. How you doing, buddy? Can I ask you a question? Is your microphone absolutely massive, or is it perspective that makes it look like that?
To be fair, I'm quite small. It might just be massive, to be honest.
All right, okay. You're just small. That's fine. No, I just need to know that. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah, no, it's incredible, isn't it? That most people are very familiar with the idea that air travel, has a big impact on our carbon footprint. It's actually 2% in terms of global carbon emissions. Yeah, but what most people aren't aware of, air travel is 3%, is that the production of a new gadget, like a new digital device, accounts for 2% global carbon emissions. So that's 3% for air travel, but 2% for a new gadget. I think that's absolutely amazing. And having spent, most of my life promoting new tech, I do feel rather guilty about the whole thing.
I can imagine. So I was just wondering, what is currently being done for tech companies to reduce carbon emissions?
Well, there's all kinds of initiatives. I mean, there's something called the right to repair law that I think came into effect in July 2021, although it does take a couple of years there's a grace period for the countries involved to come into compliance with it. So the UK certainly. So that's going to have an impact. And what that does is it puts the onus of producing spare parts that you can use to fix your mobile phone, your laptop, your console onto the manufacturers. So, the big players, the Sonys, the Apples, the Googles, whoever it is that you get your devices from. They're now being encouraged under a new law to provide a means for repair. Now, that doesn't mean that you and I necessarily need to start getting a screwdriver out. It'll still be like a third party. But if you've ever dropped your phone and you've seen the technical process that is behind the replacement of some screens, it can be really, really difficult. There are some phone brands that make much more. Their design makes the process of refurbishing much easier. So that's happening. But the research that we're talking about, and the reason that I'm here chatting to you, is that I've joined forces with backmarket.co.uk. And what they do, they're a marketplace for those companies that refurbish devices. Yeah. And you can buy, let's say, a year-old smartphone. So a smartphone that's 5G, that's got a really decent camera on it, and all the latest kit and caboodle. You can buy that at a much bigger saving than you would be making if you were buying the latest handset. But more importantly, you're having an almost negligible impact in terms of the carbon emissions of that device. So based on that fact that I mentioned earlier about the extraordinary amount of resources like silver, gold, copper, lithium, all of these other exotic materials, and the air travel that's involved, the freight that's involved in the production of a new device, you're not contributing to any of that because you're in a cyclical refurbished cycle. So you're using a phone that someone else had for a year or two or whatever, and you're continuing to extend its life. You're giving it a second life, if that makes sense.
Brilliant.
Hi, Jason. So I just wanted to know, what do you think the impact of the cost of living crisis will have on consumer habits relating to people buying technology, or people now no longer buying technology because they can't afford to?
Well, I think you've made a really good point, Janine, that, let's be honest, we're in what seems like post the pandemic, an ever increasing penny pinching cycle. Things are becoming more expensive. Materials are harder to get hold of, so ultimately we end up spending more for them. And then there's the whole utility energy issue around cost and fuel. And as a dad with 3 kids, it's already having a big impact on my bank balance, and I'm sure that's the case for many of your listeners. So let me just say that I don't want to be a bore about this. Some people do need the latest device. Okay, if you're creating content in whatever context, maybe for your job, and you need the latest camera because it's got a wide angle mode on it, or a zoom, or a level of clarity, 4K, even 8K, although I don't know of many instances when even I produce daily video and photographic content for my social media. I don't need 8K. I wouldn't even be able, it would melt my computer if I tried to edit that. But there are user case scenarios where we need the latest kit. Yeah, smartphones are not the only category in that respect. Laptops and tablets and so on. Then fine, that's cool. It's necessary. But I think we've got too used to it, Janine. Don't you think we've got too used to getting prompted to buy the latest device? And I'm part of that mode of thought. And what I'm saying is actually there is a slightly different way. So let's say for argument, I might need a new phone. All right. I actually don't. I'm more than happy with a phone. My current phone is two to 3 years old, if I'm absolutely honest with you. And it still does all the stuff I need it to do. But my kids definitely don't need the absolute latest device. And as a dad, I love the fact that I can save up to 70%, depending on what device you're buying, by using something like Back Market to furnish my family's needs. So I think there's maybe a mental shift happening, and we are good at this in this country. We've all learned to recycle, haven't we? You know what I mean? Like we're all kind of, most people get the merits of it, even though it's a bit of a bore. We get behind it. So I don't see why, with statistics like 2% of global carbon emissions come from new devices. That's a pretty galvanizing bit of data right there, isn't it?
So I just wanted to ask, what is your favorite gadget at the moment?
My favorite gadget at the moment, or of all time?
Let's just make it of all time. I want to know.
So I've got a DeLorean. Talk about upcycling. I bought a DeLorean, which I'm guessing, looking at you, Ash, through the webcam, you may not have been around the first time that Back to the Future
No,
was on our screens on the cinemas. You're a youngster, and but for me, the DeLorean in the 80s. I was born in 1969, so I was alive well before the current sort of digital consumer electronics age began. My first console I've got here, actually. Do you want to see it? I don't know if any of your listeners are actually viewers and are watching, but that's it there. That's my Atari 2600, and you'll note the front of it, Shanine, is wooden. Well, it's sort of faux wood, as everything was in the 70s. This is 1979. Things have changed a bit since then, but my DeLorean is my favorite gadget ever. But in terms of new new tech that's incoming, perhaps, and that's going to be game changing, I seem to have it all to hand because I'm doing this via Zoom. Isn't that bonkers? My virtual reality devices, I've got a couple of these. That's a Quest 1. I've got a Quest 2. The next iteration of that technology from what used to be called Facebook and now called Meta is going to be an augmented reality device. It's going to be a mixed reality device whereby I can see my room. I could see you, for example, and let's say the notes that I've got so that I can speak with authority about back market are on a bit of paper today, or they could be on my screen tomorrow. In inverted commas, they're going to be hovering in front of your face. And that's the sort of user case scenario for mixed reality. And then if people have heard of the metaverse, are you down with that? Are you ready for the metaverse? That's coming around the corner. The likes of Apple are dropping headsets next year that are going to enable us to have some form of meta layering over the real world, which some of your listeners, viewers might find absolutely abhorrent and really scary. But I would advise anyone, newness always feels weird. Smartphones, mobile phones felt bizarre. The internet was going to stop everyone reading. I mean, it's very often not the case that it's the end of civilization. Often we find uses for it that we never knew we had.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, personally, I'm quite scared of the metaverse.
Me too.
Yeah.
Are you? How interesting.
I mean, I think that's all we have time for at the moment. But thank you so much for coming on here. It was lovely talking to you.
Yeah, it was lovely speaking to you.
You two guys as well. You've got a really posh studio there. You've put me to shame, really. And that mic is just distractingly large. But it's been brilliant. Enjoy the future.
Well, thank you.
Some post offices in Bradford are closed today after a national strike was announced over pay disputes. Many independent post offices will remain open despite their own concerns over pay. Communication Workers Union said the offer of 2% wage increase after a pay freeze was insulting compared to the voted-in rejected offer of a 2% wage increase, saying it does not come near to the rising cost of living. Members voted in April in favour of industrial action after a pay freeze was announced. We asked people on the streets of Bradford what they think about the increase in pay.
Yeah, they should get paid more. Yeah, they should get paid more because they do a brilliant job, and the post office are all right. But the only problem is when you have to pay your bills and there's no post office open bank holidays.
I don't want a pay rise. I just think we've got to get together and just help each other. To be honest, the situation in the country at the moment is dreadful, and I think no, just get on with it.
Yorkshire-based band the Pigeon Detectives have joined musicians across the UK criticising venues for taking a cut from merchandise sales. Venues often take up to 25% from sales of band t-shirts and posters after gigs, a practice that Ryan Wilson from the band called greed. Bands often fund albums and touring costs through merchandise sales. We spoke to Ryan and he told us how important gigging is to the Pigeon Detectives.
In this day and age, it's pretty much everything. With the advent of streaming services and whatnot, long gone are the days of making money from record sales. I mean, it maybe covers itself roughly if you stream enough and whatnot, but bands in the 70s, 80s, 90s, they made a lot of money off record sales when they sold a lot of records, and they'd get a decent percentage of it. But with the streaming now, I mean, we get I think we have to stream about 1,000 streams just to get a penny or something. It's ridiculous, really. So going out on tour is the bread and butter of the band, really. It's what pays for our mortgages. It's what pays for the next record to be recorded and whatnot. So, yeah, it's everything.
And of the revenue that you receive from gigging, how important is merchandising?
It's pretty important in the respect of it's not make or break. You know, if we went on tour without merchandise, it wouldn't mean that we'd lose money or anything like that. But what it does do is it kind of helps covers costs. So at the end of a tour, the merchandise sales will pay for, say, the tour bus. And, you know, it might not seem a big thing, but it is. You know, a tour bus is nearly £1,000 a day, potentially. So, you know, I'm not saying we make £1,000 every gig on merchandise, but, you know, if it pays for the tour bus at the end of it, then that's money saved for us. It's more money in the bank. So it really does help. And we're an established band, you know, we do all right size gigs. So it's more the up and coming bands or bands that, you know, maybe playing smaller venues and doing, say, 400 or 500 quid a night on merchandise is a big deal to them. It'll help pay for a lot of things. And, you know, so they might not be getting paid a lot for the actual gig themselves. So the merch really does help with that situation. So it is an important feature.
So why do venues take up to potentially 25% of merchandise sales? What's the venue's perspective on it?
Probably greed more than anything, just revenue into it. You know, their argument, I think, is, well, you know, we're allowing you to sell a product in here. So, you know, we're giving you the platform. So that's, you know, we deserve a stake in that. Now, I understand what they're saying, but similarly, do we go asking for bar sales? You know, no, we don't. We're bringing people into their venue. We're bringing people in with a pocket full of cash, buying beer and whatnot, and making them a lot of money, in fact. So I think it's just out of greed, really, you know. And I'll be honest with you, it's the venues that seem to take the highest amount are the more bigger corporate venues. Some of the little independent venues, I think they understand, they know what the crack is amongst the musicians and the bands, and they're happy just to have the bands in their venue and people in their door, through their door, buying you know, drinks at the bar, and that they're happy with that. But the bigger corporate ones, they just, it's just out of pure greed, really. And the frustrating thing is, some of the bigger venues, they don't allow your merchandise seller to sell it. I guess they're scared that you could fudge the numbers or something like that. So they bring their own merchandise person in that sells your product, and they don't care less about how much you sell or not. Their seller, they're just there just to take people's money, and then at the end of the day say, oh yeah, they sold 50 t-shirts or whatever. And there's no personalization with that. Our merchandise seller was the same guy we've used for 10, 12 years, and you know, he's kind of part of our family, really, as a band. And he wants to sell products for us. He has banter with the punters in the venue. He knows everything about every product that we sell. Like, you know, he can tell you the sizing. He can tell you, you know, the quality of it and whatnot. And that helps overall. So when we go in these bigger venues taking 20, 25%, he has to literally just stand at the side, not doing anything, which is a waste of money for us because we've got to pay his daily wage. All he does is carry the merchandise boxes into the venue and then takes them out again at the end of the day. And, you know, that costs us money to do that. And then we're paying 25% on top of everything we sell. It just feels like a racket, to be honest with you. And it's something we've discussed as a band for a while now. We've not been happy about it. So when I heard that there's, you know, musicians and artists getting together to kind of complain about this, I really welcomed that news.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for talking to me. Nice to meet you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, fantastic.
Work has now started in Bradford City Centre to develop the former Trills police station into a 5-storey Grade A office building. Expected to be completed in summer 2023, Bradford Council says it is a key step in its plans to regenerate the city centre and will help create more construction and office jobs. However, critics have questioned why the council is pressing ahead with the scheme during a time when companies are moving towards flexible working. Bradford Council is offering grants for up to £250 to help communities join in with the national celebrations for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Street parties, community barbecues, potluck suppers, and picnics are all eligible activities for the grant. Applications may be awarded up to £500 if their event brings together people from a variety of generations, communities, which includes young people. And finally, a look at the weather. We got our reporter, Amelia Riley, outside the studio. How's it looking outside, Amelia?
Morrison's new owners want to sell 87 petrol stations to help with their £7 billion takeover. The private equity firm Clayton, Jubilee and Rice bought the Bradford-based grocer at auction last year. UK's competition watchdogs concerned the deal could lead to higher fuel prices for some customers. And Bradford City are playing a behind-the-closed-doors friendly game against Brentford today. Action is already underway at the Utilia Energy Stadium and is available to watch live on Brentford Football Club's YouTube channel.
That's Yorkshire News at 1:30. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30. We apologise for any technical difficulties.